Hey, good morning, everybody. It's BDF44 coming at you with another video. So, I want to talk about the Atlanta Hawks because they're one of the teams in the Eastern Conference that are a full-time contender right now, and they are a team that I keep forgetting to mention when considering how strong the Eastern Conference has become. Uh, the Eastern Conference, if my calculations are correct, being that I've forgotten about this particular team and all the other teams that I had been listing, they are a stronger conference than the Western Conference this year. They actually are. They have more quality teams at the top than the Western Conference does this season. It's absolutely insane. Probably the first time I've seen it in all of my years of life. Today's actually my 37th birthday, so I've never seen the Eastern Conference be better than they are right now. Just simply, they've never been. At least not in this era. So I'm looking at the roster here of the Atlanta Hawks, and to be dead honest with all of you, they may be the deepest team in all of basketball. They they look like they have the most complete. I ain't gonna say complete roster. I haven't done the homework on that in terms of whether pieces fit or not. I haven't done the homework as well as I'd like to say that they're the most complete team. But what I will say is they have the most talent from top to bottom that I've seen. Period. Like this is the best roster I've seen. Um, so I'm gonna tell you why I think that right now. Okay, so first of all, the first name I'm going to mention is Onyeka Okongwu, and the reason why that is because we got to remove him entirely. He's going to be out until January. This is a player who is known for playing on the Spire team. I think it's the name of the team with Lamelo and the Ball Bros. He's one of the guys that was a part of their friends friend circle. I guess you can say he's one of the homies. So yeah, he had a good start to his career, but unfortunately, I guess it was a knee injury somewhere in there during the playoffs, I believe. Maybe before this playoffs, right before. And it did shut him down for the season, and that's going to carry over into next as well, unfortunately. But this is a big time power forward prospect going forward. This is somebody who can develop into being a very, very good traditional power forward center combination who can definitely do a lot of energy things like rebound and dunking on your head and just overall making things very difficult for people. So I like Onyeka Okongwu going forward, but he's going to have to take his time with his injury. The next guy I want to mention is Bogdan Bakdonovich, and it's because he's broken out over the last, say, year. I don't want to say 2 years, but definitely last season was a breakout season for him. Despite having some injury issues, some things kept him out of the lineup, he showed you that he could finally be who it is that we saw him become in the rookie game several years back when he just launched a bunch of threes and knocked down all of them, won the MVP of that game. He showed us a lot of that in Atlanta. As soon as this coaching change took place, bringing in Nate McMillan, he immediately took to that and was one of the players who took advantage of the fact that Deandre Hunter's minutes had been cut from injury as well. So Bogdan stepped in with his opportunity and established himself as somebody who can be a big-time scoring role player in this league, maybe even better than role player. But he could score. He could score, and you're gonna love having him in Atlanta going forward. Next name on my list is Clint Capela. And Clint Capela is one of those players who's underrated in this league, in my opinion, because of his position. He was traded from the Atlanta Hawks, from the Houston Rockets because of cap situations, strictly because of cap stuff. But it was a simultaneous opportunity for the Houston Rockets GM to create a unique dynamic where there was no center at all in the lineup. So I think it was one of those double type of situations where it's like not only do we want to create cap space because we have no flexibility, but we also want to try something funny with our roster. So let's trade Clint Capela, and that's what they did. They sent him to Atlanta. He did not play. As soon as he got to Atlanta, he was fighting back from injury as well. That was another reason why Houston was happy to let him go. But you knew that when Capela got healthy, he was the type of player that could change the fortune of a bad franchise because of what he did in the paint, establishing extra possessions, offensive rebounds, of all kinds, and really just overall dominating players in the paint in a way that you don't see a whole lot of players do in this era. He has a lot of foot speed for a center. He's relentless in the paint. He doesn't mind banging with people. He is stronger than 90% of the players in this league, and he continues to be relentless every single time he has an opportunity to. This is somebody that I think should have already made an all-star team, in my opinion. But because of the circumstances that he's been in, it's kind of hard to have made all-star teams thus far. But this is a player that I look at as an all-star caliber player. And worth every penny, in my opinion. Not everybody needs to be able to shoot the ball. A guy like Clint Capela, I value just as much as a shooter. So long as you keep players around him that are not going to clog the paint, he's going to be an asset to every single franchise he is on. So he's somebody that I think is a mainstay of the Atlanta Hawks if they want to continue winning. Even though he's not the sexiest name, you best believe his plus minus is going to be higher than most because he's going to do a lot of things to help his ball club and erase mistakes of some of the players on his team. That's what Clint Capela does. So, next name we're going to mention is a guy who just got paid, big-time power forward, John Collins. All-star caliber player, in my opinion. Finally got a chance to taste some success last year, being in the Eastern Conference Finals. He's kind of actually, that Atlanta Hawk team was pretty good with him and Al Horford. They also got to the Eastern Conference Finals, so he's had some success early in his career. I believe he was part of that team. I think he was there. But this is a guy who can give you 30. He can give you 30 points. I haven't had a chance to see a whole lot of John Collins, even though he's been in the league for a long time, because I didn't watch a whole lot of Hawks basketball. But when I did see John Collins play, he was scoring. He's not afraid of anything. He can shoot the jump shot. He can do all the stuff you need him to do. Very athletic, catch your lobs, do what you need him to do, stretch the floor if necessary. He's just a very, very, very good star-level big. Much more reliable than some of the guys drafted around him at that position, and has been a good investment thus far. I don't know that what he brings to the table affects winning as much, but he is surely a hell of a punch to have on your team when you need some scoring and some rebounding. So to put him in there, and he's a better defender than people think too. So putting him in that lineup is why I consider them one of the deepest teams. And I continue to read these names. You'll see what I'm talking about. Next name is Trey Young. Trey Young. He just signed $207 million. Every penny worth it. This is one of the premier players in basketball, and this is somebody they said wouldn't even be able to make it in the league because he was too small. He would get bumped off of people. He didn't shoot the ball pretty well. He had a shot selection issues. He was somebody that they just felt was going to be a bust. The bust potential was so high. We're just going to move on from that. Anyway, Kev Herter. Now, Kevin Herter is a guy. Kevin Herter, to me, is one of those guys where he's itching for an opportunity to just show that he's an all-star caliber player. I think that all that he's shown me in a small sample size is somebody that he's going to be a pure shooter, but he's going to do more than some of the other pure shooters out there. Like a guy like Duncan Robinson, I'd rather have a guy like Kevin Herter because Kevin Herter is going to give me more. Kevin Herter can shoot and hit every three-point shot he takes, but he can also be a guy that gets some steals. He's also a guy who will get a couple dirty bird rebounds. He's also a guy who will dunk on you a little bit. He's also a guy who's going to be high at the free throw line, high percentage at the free throw line, rather. Kevin Herter's just an all-around player with scorers, not even scorers, pure shooters, pure three-point shooters ability, and that is a rare, rare thing. You rarely see guys who shoot as well as him that are capable of holding the load in other areas of basketball like he does. So I'm a fan of Kevin Herter, and because, like I said, Deandre Hunter was out, because guys were having injuries, Bogdan, he was able to show what he can do and get the minutes that would allow that. So I'm super high on Kevin Herter. Yet another name why this team is probably the deepest team in all of basketball. Yet another name. Here's another one. Deandre Hunter. Now, of course, Deandre Hunter's coming back from injury. We haven't seen Deandre Hunter play well since maybe the beginning of last season. But the previous season, the bubble season, prior to that, this dude was playing like an all-star. Atlanta was in a position to give him more minutes at the time. They didn't have the depth that they have right now. And he showed you why he was drafted so high. Because he's a guy who can literally do the 3-and-D thing about as well as anybody in the class. He'll lock up the next player, and then he'll come down, hit the three. He has a mid-range game. He loves to be aggressive. He can dunk the ball. There's not too much that he can't do. But what you love about him the most is his defense. What he brings on the defensive side of the ball is what's best about Deandre Hunter. So you look at all these players I just named, and there's still a lot of them left. I do believe Deandre Hunter's starting the season healthy this year. So that's going to be interesting to see how they do their rotations and see how many of these guys are still on the team. Because some of them they may not actually have the roles for this season. Next up, Jalen Johnson, rookie that they just drafted. Killing Summer League. This dude is a 2010 guy. He looks like another John Collins, basically. They're going to have a very interesting time finding minutes for Jalen Johnson because of all of this depth. But if they put him in a position to get starters minutes, I think this kid can be amongst the top 10 rookies in all of basketball. That's how good Jalen Johnson's been looking in the summer league. You give him minutes, and he's going to light it up. By the way, saying top 10, that's scary because there's like 50 guys in this draft class that can all contribute this year. It's unbelievable how good this draft class is. He's just one of many of those guys. I'm not sure where they got him. First round, second round, don't really know. But I have been loosely paying attention to what he's doing in the summer league, and he's probably the best player on the summer league team right now. Excuse me. So, moving on, Cam Reddish. Cam Reddish is another player that I'm super high on, and I heard that the Indiana Pacers had some interest in him. Obviously, no trade was made. He's still with the Atlanta Hawks. But because of the depth on this team, I do wonder who's going to be left out, who's not going to have opportunities. Maybe that's Cam Reddish. It shouldn't be. Why it shouldn't be is because Cam Reddish showed us that in the playoffs, after being out for like a month or more, he came back and was an immediate contributor to playoff winning. And rarely do you see a player who had yet to establish himself, period, in the league, be out with a serious injury that keeps him out for a very long time and step into a playoff game and dominate. That's what Cam Reddish did. So if you have any questions about what he brings to the table, just remember what I just said right there. As far as who he is, pure scorer, a weapon. I think of players like Malik Monk, guys who have automatic weapon scoring mechanics, guys who roll out of bed and can score the basketball, guys who were born to do it, Tracy McGrady type guys who just does not matter how old they are, it doesn't matter how they're feeling that day, what's on their mind, how awake they are, they're still going to be able to score the basketball. Cam Reddish is one of those people. He can score the basketball. It doesn't really matter what's going on. He can score on any court at any time. What he needs to do at this point is just get opportunities to show that. And in the playoffs, he did. He's a leading guy. He's aggressive. I say he's a leading guy because of what I saw in those moments. I don't know if you can do it sustainably, but the potential for him to lead was there. He was shining amongst the players on his basketball team who happened to be very good too. He was shining. And so taking it upon himself to string basketballs points together when the team was struggling. That's leadership. And that's what I saw in him coming back from injury. That's the most important part of it. We're not even talking about a guy who had been playing for a week off injury. He maybe came back for like one game, got a couple layups, and then the next game he was immediately affecting basketball play in the playoffs. So I can't say enough about Cam Reddish. He's also a fantastic defender. This is not a one-way player. This is somebody you can put on the other end and have some effective stops take place because of his activity. You do not want to take a guy like Cam Reddish for granted because of the fact that you have so much depth. You may think that it's okay to not play him or to trade him for pennies on the dollar. You'll regret that. I promise you. You will regret that. The next name on this list is another guy who just makes this team super deep, a guy who wasn't here last year, a guy who's having a hard time finding a role in the league, but a guy who has not had a hard time playing well in those roles that he's been given. Delon Wright. Delon Wright is probably one of the more underrated role players in all of basketball. From the time he came to Dallas, he was effective on both ends of the floor. He could hit shots, and most importantly, he was a pest. He's a pest. If I can think of anything in regards to Delon Wright, he's an absolute pest. He's a guy who will get underneath the superstar, make him frustrated, get in the passing lane, steal the ball, muck up a very, very nice passing play that your team is doing. You look like you got it good. All of a sudden, he's getting in there, stealing it, going the other way. Kind of unorthodox, but very, very effective. Can rebound, can score, can pass, can steal. He can do all of those things. And the thing about it is, he doesn't do a lot of those things. You're not looking at Delon Wright saying, give me 30. You're not looking at Delon Wright saying he got a double-double. You're not looking at Delon Wright saying he went crazy. You're just sitting here saying, okay, he got a little bit of everything. Okay, you gave him starters minutes. He came in for a guy who's been hurt for the last week. Oh, he gave me starters production. He's one of those. But goes back to the bench, usually for another bigger name to come in and continue. Or he'll get traded to a team like he has for the last couple of situations where they already have a bunch of guards. So he doesn't get a chance to really show what he can do. But when he's given the real minutes, somebody goes down, like let's say in Detroit, somebody went down, he stepped in and was balling. balling for about a good 2.5 weeks. He was a starter, playing starters level production. So as far as I'm concerned, one of the reasons why this is the deepest team I've seen is because they've added Delon Wright to this roster when they already have all this other stuff on top of it. Shall we keep going? Sharif Cooper. I want to make an entire video on Sharif Cooper because Sharif Cooper is a guy who should not have fallen that far in the draft. I do not know why he fell to the second round. Honestly, though. I understood it might have been some health issues or something like that that might have dropped his value, but I literally have no idea. One thing I do know, he passes the eye test. He is already, to me, one of the premier passers in basketball. Sharif Cooper steps into the league as one of the premier passers in basketball. That doesn't mean they're going to be a premier player. That doesn't mean he's going to be a premier player. Because I've seen guys be premier passers and they're not premier players. I said the same thing about a guy like Kendall Marshall. You know what I mean? I said the same thing about a guy like Brevin Knight. Fantastic passers, maybe not the greatest in every other area. But I'll tell you this about Sharif Cooper. Sharif Cooper is a showman. This is somebody who likes to entertain. This is somebody who likes the crowd to react to what it is that he did flashy. And let me tell you, he makes good decisions in those circumstances. He's good at entertaining a basketball crowd. And you would be wise to make sure he's on the basketball floor because he does play some defense. Now, I will admit, sometimes he does shoot bad shots. He's not a three-point shooter, and I think that may have contributed to why he did fall. He will attempt a three, and it will break. Brick. And I'll be honest with you. In watching Summer League, the shooting overall surrounding this draft class is probably some of the best shooting I've seen in terms of shot making. Guys just not missing open shots. Guys just not taking bad shots. This is some of the best shooting I've ever seen in the Summer League. And unfortunately, some of the plays that I've seen him shoot have been bad shots. So when everybody else is making and you're missing, it does stand out. And even though you can have a bunch of passes, a bunch of fantastic plays, if you mess up the last couple of plays and it costs the team the game, it's going to skew how people look at you. And I think Sharif Cooper has run into some of that in the summer league. However, for me, I still look at him as a type of prospect that I feel very, very comfortable developing and keeping on my roster and ultimately paying someday, because this dude is going to make other players better and he's going to peep booties in seats doing it because people are going to come to see him do what it is that he does. Trust you me, this is a showman, and we don't have many of those in this league right now. He likes to make you happy playing basketball. He wants to entertain. And so at this point, it's like, okay, is Atlanta the best place for him? Because this is Trey Young's squad. There ain't no point guard stepping in. There's no opportunity to move up. You could be a backup. You'll be able to play off the ball. But as far as doing what Sharif Cooper does, he's going to have to do it from another position, or he's going to have to do it in second units. And with the depth on this team, I don't think he's going to get the playing time that he would get pretty much anywhere else. And I mean anywhere else. So it's kind of an unfortunate situation for my guy Sharif because it's so guard heavy. But he is a standout prospect. And before it is over with, all of us will know his name, Sharif Cooper. Danilo Gallinari is another name on this list that I'm looking at. Keeps the team deep. One of the pure scorers, guys, role players that the league has had over the last several years. Started off his career with New York, got in some real injury issues after being traded, but bounced back from those injury issues. Has had some good tenures with places like OKC and the Clippers. And now he's with Atlanta. They got to the finals last year. He is a guy that I think is going to have an opportunity to get some minutes this year, continue to be in his role as one of the pure scorers on the team, one of the go-to veterans on the basketball club. And, you know, I think his role will be plentiful this season, just like it usually is in every situation he's in. So I don't doubt that he is going to have an effect on this basketball team in a positive way if he's healthy. Gorgie Deng at this point in his career is a center who, is a role player. He's not going to look to take anything from anybody. He's just in a situation where he's going to contribute to this roster like he always has. He's been in Minnesota for most of his career, played in Memphis last year. Never really been a guy to ask to do too much, or, that is going to give too much, but he is somebody who can do a little bit of everything, including shoot the ball. He was one of those centers that came in who was able to stretch the three Really, before it was popular to see guys like that in the league, before Porzingis, before those guys, you saw Gorgie Gang come in and shoot a three. You'd be like, oh, okay, he really does have some big time ability. But the problem with Gorgie Gang is he was always playing behind guys. He never really had an opportunity to establish himself as a starter early. Fell into a role as a role player on a bad team, and has not been able to shake that off. Never really got a chance to get the type of opportunities that would allow him to really sustain some real value in the league. But nevertheless, he finds himself in situations because of his ability to do the things that he does, which is he has some nice mechanics shooting the ball. He has rebounding ability. He's obviously a very, very tall center, so he could block shots, rebound here and there. Not a guy who's going to stir up no ruckus or nothing like that. You don't hear his name involved in nothing funny. He's just a guy who's going to do his job. And I think he contributes to the size on this team, especially with Okongwu missing. He will help when they ask of him to do so. Look at another name, Solomon Hill. And we know who Solomon Hill is. Solomon Hill is a gritty guy. He's a guy that hurt LeBron James. The Laker fans are still very upset about that. He's infamous for having a very, very, very unfavorable contract on the New Orleans Pelicans. He's one of the reasons why they're so bad right now. It's because of the contract that they gave him many years ago that really kept him in the gutter for a very long time. So the Solomon Hill contract was a thing for a long time, but now he's back to normal. He's on a team that's winning. I don't know that he's going to play a whole lot this year for obvious reasons, but he's still on this roster, and he contributes quite a bit as a veteran, quite a bit, and especially on the defensive end. Lou Williams is on this roster. We know who Sweet Lou is. Problem in this situation is you just don't know what he has left. He hasn't really been the Lou of old as of late. Last I checked, he was a free agent, but I think he did re-sign. He did re-sign with the Hawks. So he will be back home, play with the Hawks this year to help the young guys. Brandon Goodwin. Brandon Goodwin is a guy that I've talked about a lot on this team, on this channel, because I believe Brandon Goodwin's a guy who's itching to get an opportunity. With the little opportunity that he had last year with guys going down to injury near the end of the season, he stepped in and showed that he could be productive. He's a scorer, shooting guard, combination point guard, shooting guard, who's really looking to get his shot off. And I haven't seen a whole lot from him, but during the time that he was a starter, he was playable in fantasy basketball, and that says a lot because it speaks to the depths on this team. You give him minutes, he gives you production. Simple as that. That's Brandon Goodwin. I thought he was going to find himself in a different situation because of the opportunity he showed to be a productive player, but he returns back to Atlanta. I don't know how much of an opportunity with all these guards he's going to have this year, but we already know he can be productive, so he's definitely a good guy to have at the back of the bench at this stage of his career. Skylar Mays is the other guy. I didn't do any homework on Skylar. I think he's a rookie. He's a shooting guard also. I doubt he gets minutes unless he stands out incredibly, because if you see, this is the end of the roster. So that's what I got, you guys. I ran down the entire Atlanta Hawks roster because I honestly, truly believe this is one of the deepest teams in all of basketball, and I simply have forgotten to mention them every time I talk about how good the Eastern Conference has become. They are a contender. They were the other team in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. They came up short, I think, due to the fact that Trey Young had the ankle injury. He wasn't able to continue doing what it is that he did. And as a result, they didn't have what they needed to overcome. So that's not going to be the case this year. Trey just got paid. Everybody's ready to go. They got a boostering with some of the players that they have on their roster. I think their defense got a lot better. When you bring in a guy like Delon Wright, you bring in Sharif Cooper, your defense is going to improve, in my opinion, just off the strength of those two type of players right there. Jalen Johnson's a big-time role player. They're going to have to find a way to rotate him into the equation. That's the thing. Nate McMillan has a much more difficult task this year, incorporating all of these players into his roster and picking and choosing who to play and when, who's going to be his starters. That can be a make-or-break situation. You pick the wrong combinations of starters on this roster, and you leave wins on the board. So it's going to be an important year for a coaching staff for the Atlanta Hawks, because this team is stacked. And keep this in mind as well. Because this team is stacked, they have trade pieces to go get somebody. I don't know who they're going to get, or if they'll go after anyone. Maybe it's in their best interest to stand still and be cool because they got a fantastic roster. But if they want to be ambitious, they have the pieces to do it. My name is BDF44. I thank y'all for watching, and I'm out.